This is the second video on cameras. All the other topics in this course are going to be only one video long, but because cameras are perhaps the item you will handle the most and the one that can involve the most expense, I thought we should spend a little bit more time on it. In this video, I'm going to focus on cameras in the $200 to $1,000 range, the advantages and disadvantages of the different types of cameras, and specifically what I think you should look for in these cameras. And look what I found as I was digging around in my video equipment that I didn't even know I still had anymore. This is a Sony Handycam that I bought when we lived in England during the 1990s. I got lots of great video of my kids and our travels around Europe with this camera. But this thing records on high-8 videotapes. Does anyone even use those anymore? This is one of the reasons why I don't recommend investing in high-end cameras for doing video, especially for academic purposes. In a few years, they're going to be seriously outdated by other cameras. Rather, look for cameras and equipment that will do great work at the best price point. After all, not many in academics are pulling in the big bucks. Camera option number 2, mid-priced small portable cameras. I used to use a Sony AS300, it's a small action camera, to create videos for 3 or 4 years. It only shot in 1080p, but it did a great job. I have a video from a bike tour of the Mickelson Trail in South Dakota on my YouTube channel, and I'll have the link down here, that was shot entirely on that camera without any external microphones. So you can see the quality of these little cameras and what they can produce. There's an incredible selection of great cameras in this range, and the options get amazingly better every year. Some of these cameras pack functions you could not have even purchased a few years ago, but I'm getting ahead of myself. As dedicated video cameras, these will often have more features that you can make use of. More on that in later videos. But as a general rule of thumb, they are going to be more rugged, have a microphone port, and perhaps be waterproof. I have yet to try that out for a video. And they have a number of accessories that you can add onto them to make video recording easier or a little bit more creative. Here's what I would look for in a camera in the $250 to say $700 range. Number 1, I would absolutely look for 4K. The same with your phone. If it has 4K, use it. Here's a graphic of the difference between 4K, 1080, and 720, just showing you how much more information that 4K captures. While most of the video that you watch on the internet is either 1080 or 720, there's a very good reason for using 4K. And that is the ability to zoom in or crop your image while you're editing your video. If you shoot in 1080 or 720, you've got to make sure that your shot is spot on when you're filming it, because you're not going to have much room to crop your image in the editing process. In order to illustrate the difference between 1080 and 4K, I thought I would come out here to the garden and give you an example. This clip right now has been reframed into 1080, but if I move it back out to 4K, you'll see how much more you get. 4K will give you the advantage to reframe your video afterwards in the editing process. So you may not get it quite right when you shoot it, but then afterwards you can zoom in on specific features like the flowers, the fountain, or perhaps yours truly. So before I leave the garden out here, let me give you a little bit of B-roll video of the garden here, because we're going to cover that in a future video. All right, enough showing you the garden. Time to head inside and talk about cameras some more. 4K also means that your camera will be future-proofed for a few years. The second feature to look for is to make sure that it has a forward-facing display. This way you get an idea if the camera is facing the proper direction and you have it framed up properly. This is the weakness of the smartphone setup, but many cameras in this price range have a display that you can view from the front side of the camera. There are a great number of cameras in this price range, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. And if you're thinking about getting a camera in this price range, I would suggest going to the store and physically picking it up and playing around with it for a few minutes, and also watching reviews of that camera on YouTube. I'm going to hesitantly make a few suggestions in this price range. However, this is 2021, and in a year or two, these may seem very outdated. But I think if you take the suggestions I have for cameras in this category, I think that will serve you well in the future as well. The first thing we need to mention are GoPro cameras. They're the best known action cameras, and the quality of their cameras and video only gets better every year. You can get a Hero 8 for around $270 and the most recent Hero 9 for around $400. With either of these, I would suggest purchasing their little add-on front-facing display. It's a very useful feature for about $80. The camera that I have in this price range is the Insta360 1R. Insta360 makes 360-degree cameras that give you the ability to create amazingly creative shots. The 1R version is also modular, sort of like Legos. You put the camera together to do what you want it to do. I've had my camera for about 6 months now, and I'm constantly impressed by what you can do with it. Because it's modular, you buy the modules that you want, and so the price varies from around $300 up to $700 depending on the individual modules that you purchase. Here's a test shot with my Insta360 camera. It's on a little mini tripod on my desk there, and you can see it's right there within arm's reach from me. This makes it very convenient for adjusting the settings or looking at the little viewfinder there. These things produce great images. I'll include a couple of shots from our vacation up in Breckenridge this summer with my kids and grandkids, just so you can see the quality of image that these little cameras produce.
New adventures.
Camera. A camera that I don't have to show you but gets great reviews is the DJI Pocket 2. This is a small camera and is packed with features. In fact, 5 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to buy any of these cameras I've mentioned in this price range so far because they just weren't invented yet. The Pocket 2 uses a gimbal to stabilize the image as opposed to software or tiny gimbals within the camera. Two features I particularly like about this camera are its active tracking. You can place the camera on a tripod and then move around, and the lens will actually track you. The second is that they sell an additional wireless microphone for this camera. If I were to purchase the DJI Pocket 2, I would make sure that I got the wireless microphone as well. And we'll cover that when we get to sound. There are also a number of compact sort of DSLR all-in-one cameras in this price range as well. The Sony ZV-1 and the Panasonic Lumix DCG100 are great examples. The main criteria I would be looking for in this middle price point are the following. Once again, 4K video. Number 2, it needs to have a plug where you can plug in an external microphone. Third, it needs to offer you control over the video settings, not just an automatic mode. And finally, image stabilization. This is where these action cameras really excel. The ability to take your camera and put it on a selfie stick or hold it out in front of you and walk around, either filming yourself or something else, really adds a dynamic element to your videos, and to have that image stabilization makes them seem beautiful. Camera option number 3, the most expensive level. An entry-level DSLR, or a digital single lens reflex camera. Once again, the development and improvements made in these cameras continues in leaps and bounds. A camera that will cost you around $1,000 today would have cost you 7 to 8 times that amount 10 years ago. After several years of using my iPhone and my Sony action camera, I decided last year to upgrade my camera. And in the process, here's what I would suggest. I would highly suggest learning how to create videos on an iPhone or a cheaper camera first. While the more expensive cameras give you more creative control, they also bring a level of complexity that can seriously hinder your ability to produce good quality videos. Now here's what I would recommend for the $1,000 price point. The first thing I would suggest is going with a compact size sensor camera. There are a number of different sensor sizes on the market. The main are 4/3 and APS-C. This mainly refers to the fact that these image sensors are smaller than what we would call a full frame DSLR. There are some trade-offs in going with a smaller sensor size than a full frame sensor camera. However, for producing first-person videos, I don't think you're going to be able to tell the difference in sensor size, or even be able to notice the difference between something that is shot on a phone and a camera in this price range. Now, the advantages to a camera with a smaller sensor size are the following. The first is that the quality of images and videos from these cameras is equal to or better than what most full-frame cameras were producing just a few years ago. The second is price. You can purchase a Sony a6100 with a zoom lens for $750. The comparable full-frame, a Sony a7 III, with lens will run you around $2,000. The full frame EOS R with a lens will cost you over $2,000. Size. I like to do field trips in my videos, so lugging a lighter, smaller camera around is a huge plus. Lenses. Lenses for compact lens sensors will run you on average 1/3 the price of a lens for a full frame camera. And speaking of lenses, oftentimes a camera will come with a basic zoom lens. Almost all the kit lenses that come with cameras these days are excellent. If they weren't, the big camera companies would not be putting them on their cameras. What to look for around the $1,000 range? Once again, 4K is non-negotiable in my opinion, and be careful because there's a lot that don't shoot 4K. Make sure it has a jack for an external microphone. Internal image stabilization is a plus. Autofocus, this is a big one. You want a camera that will find and focus on you when you're in front of the camera. So make sure it has face or eye autofocus. This will keep you clean and crisp in the video, since you won't have someone working the focus on the camera or standing behind it making sure it's in focus. A flip out screen. Make sure it has a flip out screen. This is a handy feature to have on camera when you are filming yourself. Go with a wider lens. I often film around the 20 to 30 millimeter mark. This is being shot on my Sony right now at 20 millimeters. Finally, for all 3 levels of camera, get spare batteries. These can be batteries that go internally within your camera, or you can use an external battery pack like one of these that you use for charging up your phone when you're traveling. You can pick these up for $20 to $30. The last thing you want is when you're shooting a video is to have one of your batteries run out. So what cameras do I use? I use my iPhone, my Insta360, and my Sony camera. Now that I've answered the question that I get asked first by so many people, what camera do I use? It's time to turn our attention in the next video to the question of where do you shoot your video and what type of lighting do you have access to? I would suggest that you go to a physical store and play around with them for... As a side note, and the full frame size refers to the old 30... Oh great, my neighbor just decided to start cutting the lawn, so I hope that's not being picked up on the microphone.